Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crubcast. We are on episode 5 of the Crubcast. We are here with a very happy man to be here, Nicco, also known as All Hail Buckets. Hey, Nicco, how you doing?
Let's go. What's up, gamers?
We're also here with a good friend of mine, Chris Mykonos fan. Hey, how's it going, Chris?
I'm a good friend. See, Nico's danced 2 intros now, so he has to keep it going. Is kind of
that's the bit now.
This is big.
Yeah, that's kind of your thing. Yeah,
that was the goal.
And our final member of the podcast today is, you know him, you love him, Kevin the Golden Bolt. How's it going?
Hi, everybody. Did you introduce yourself?
No. My name is Justin, also known as JTart9. I think of others before myself. That's just kind of how I live my life.
He's too famous. He's too famous.
See, if I'm so famous, you heard me start up the podcast and you were like, "Yep, that's him. I know." You don't need to introduce me.
He's like, everyone else is a small fry compared to me, so I don't have to introduce myself.
Those are loaded words. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. I've been just getting ready for Too Many Games, which this will date this episode, but I'm very excited. We're going to be at Too Many Games, everyone except for Chris, because Chris couldn't make it this year.
If you are listening to this the day it goes live, Too Many Games has started. And if you're going there, make sure to find us. I know I have stickers, and Trav has stickers, and it'll be a good time if you come say hello and chat with us. So if you're not there, leave. Don't leave. We need the metrics.
No, not even. Just start walking. Like, leave your house and start walking to TMG.
You could get there by day 2.
Exactly. So you can get there by day 2, and you can still meet us. We'll still be there.
Yeah. And I'll just talk to you or something, maybe.
And maybe. not even a promise. Just
we can't promise anything.
But
well, with my track record of being in the Moe's bathroom, I think people know where to find
That's true.
me.
That's very true.
That's miserable. People know where to find me. The Moe's bathroom.
Well, this year, I guess you have to stop one of us in the Moe's bathroom. What if we invite John to Moe's?
Oh, dude, we have to.
We should invite John to Moe's and then lock him in the bathroom, and he won't be able to leave.
Lock him in with Nicco while Nico's pooping.
Yes, and then we run the convention now. This is how we take over.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's.
I support it.
Although I guess we'd have to find Caddy too. You think Caddy would join us in the bathroom?
You know what?
Us in the bathroom? When did we become in the bathroom?
Yeah, when did you guys get
people more popular than us in there?
Justin, what are we talking about today on this episode of the podcast?
Speaking of Too Many Games, something that Too Many Games has transitioned into a lot recently is getting into tabletop gaming. And there's been a lot of Magic the Gathering tournaments, a lot of Pokemon TCG tournaments, a lot of Board Game Alley in the back of the convention hall at Too Many Games. And that kind of prompted me to think about how effective is tabletop gaming in the modern era, with the era of Discord and online gaming and more not being in the same room as your friends. Kevin, do you have any opinions on this?
So I'm a recent downloader of Tabletop Simulator, which is a game for those that are unfamiliar. Essentially, modders or dedicated fans have put most every tabletop game that exists onto Tabletop Sim so you can play online with your friends. And I had downloaded it whenever the last Steam sale was for it, and we haven't had a chance to play it yet, but a board game that I'm very fond of is the Shovel Knight board game, which I usually bring to like Too Many Games or whenever we're all hanging out in person, because it's a really good time, but it takes like 40 minutes to remember how to play every single time that you go to start up, because that one's actually a pretty involved, complex game, and it's really cool because it's like a side-scrolling platformer, but in board game form. And it's a really good time, but the startup makes it hard to justify bringing every time in the rare times we see each other, because we only do it like twice a year or 3 times a year. So we don't get the chance to get the reps in to continue going and remembering stuff. And that's what makes those things like a board game sim or the ones that have online elements useful, which I'm sure we'll talk about over the course of the podcast today. Mm-hmm. But that's my early thoughts on it.
I'd love to elaborate on the side-scrolling board game part for people who aren't familiar, because you probably don't know about the Shovel Knight board game. which is where it literally comes in segmented chunks of a board.
Yeah.
And you move everything left, basically, pop off the left one, and then set a new chunk down, and then have to adapt to that. So it's literally, like you said, a side-scrolling board game.
Yeah. It's
Very
so cool. And then like you put down different enemies based on like random. It's not random. They usually have like an icon and say like pull an enemy card, and then you pull a card and you put that enemy. And I have the 3D version where they made like all these really cool figures and stuff for them. Because there's a 2D version that existed that had like little like plastic paper figs that are like a flat thing. And then there's one that's like full 3D models. They're not painted outside of like maybe one or two. But you can paint them yourself then, which is another element of tabletop gaming that a lot of people, especially the Warhammer crowd, are really fond of. And that's not my scene at all personally, because I don't have any art skills. All the art skills I've taught myself are really focused on YouTube thumbnails and harassing my friends with Photoshops.
So you're not Henry Cavill.
Henry C. We didn't look up whether his name was Cavill or Cable yet. So
I was
probably
saying
done that.
I was saying Cavill because I assumed it's the wrong one. So
that's fair,
you're right?
But yeah, he's a huge tabletop guy. Like I think he has. Wasn't it a huge Warhammer collection?
He has one of the biggest Warhammer collections in like North America, and he's been like pitching a Warhammer show to like execs of like multiple TV companies over and over and over again because he's like, I want to do Warhammer stuff.
Yeah, everybody except Netflix, I'm sure.
Yeah, because Netflix would take it and then cancel it in like a season or two.
The same thing they did with The Witcher, where they'll just take
they got
they
beef.
want.
I think after that, I think Henry C. decided not to do any work with them anymore.
I love just calling him Henry C. It's
Henry
so good.
C is so good.
Can I just?
Well, now we have to mention Henry C's Warhammer every week. We've done it 2 weeks.
This is true. I guess we could just call him like not Superman and not Geralt. I guess people would get the reference.
No, Henry C. That's the rule.
Henry C.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nicco.
So, Nicco, what do you think about tabletop gaming in general, or even like D&D in the internet age? Because you're also a new gamer in general, but also new to the tabletop world, kind of like I am, really.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, fellas. I hadn't really considered board games in this context because I have Tabletop Simulator, but it runs like a PowerPoint on my computer. It is not sustainable. Yeah, it's not, it's abysmal. And I really love playing tabletop, like board games, right? So like I have like
for those in the audio recording,
right under his recording area.
For those, for those who are for those audio listeners, I'm pulling up a copy of Klask, which I have because I really like physical, cool little skill-based games like this, and games that are simple that don't take 40 minutes to get into the rules. Yeah. And I have another game called Wavelength that I really like that takes 2 seconds to explain the rules. Really, really cool. I love games like that. As for D&D, I have some qualms with it, but I think I would play it again, depending. I have some qualms, but that's really all you need to know.
For those of you who don't know what Klask is, it's basically air hockey, but everything's done with magnets. So you have two little magnet, like, what's the word? Like, the name,
yeah, like little like pawns essentially.
They're like the paddles. They're like the paddles you have for like air hockey. And then you smack
like an
the
air
disc.
hockey paddle.
But in Klask is the ball, and you try and get it into the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really simple, really nice, and it's like three different pieces of like wood. So it's super easy to put away. It's super easy to clean up. It's super easy to bring out at a party. Things like that.
Yeah. And it's sturdy and like handmade, and it was cheaper than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, because again, at the end of the day, it's just kind of like 3 pieces of wood and some magnets. But Chris, you're the outlier here in that you don't actually have Tabletop Simulator, right?
I thought you were going to say you don't actually have friends to play with, right? You're like, yeah, you're right. No,
Damn,
I don't
you
have
got me.
Tabletop Simulator. I have, unless you want to count Mario Party, which I guess you could. I haven't really played online board games with anyone ever, to my knowledge.
And Mario Party was recent. That was like COVID era. That was
recent.
We set up Mario Party Net Play, and then obviously Superstars then came out.
Yeah, right. Because I had a D&D group in high school, and the best part of my week each week was pretty much seeing those guys. We went to the pizza place right next to the school every week, played D&D, had a great time. I learned what Magic Missile is, I was the one who kind of goofed the campaign up each week, but in a fun way, I like to think. And I guess related to the issue, once high school ended, right? People went off to college. People went off and had kids. I haven't seen those guys in years at this point. Even though some of them are still around, it's just one of those friend groups that just, it was a collective glue. And once some of it fell apart, it just all went away, basically. So, like, an online board game thing sounds great. I've just never had that opportunity, I guess. As I look into the eyes of the three who would probably do it with me. But, yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right? Like, I look at people who have, like, in-person board game nights, like, once a month or something with their friends. And I'm like, I wish I had that. I like board games. I think they're very cool. I like learning all the rules and, just having an excuse to get together with people. But especially in the COVID era, or the post-COVID era we are maybe potentially in, doesn't really happen for me, at least. Yeah.
I need you to know that you've corrupted me to the point that when you said, I wish I had what they had, I thought about the Sonic 2 movie. With the scene, for those that don't know, there's a scene in Sonic 2 where there's a bunch of buff dudes that win in volleyball, and they're all just high-fiving and, like, hugging, and they're all just shirtless.
And spraying champagne.
Spraying champagne, thank you. And the main human character looks over and says, man, I wish Sonic had that.
James Marsden?
It's so good.
And they're like, what?
I had to go through the loop because when you mentioned that, I knew what you were referencing, and I was like, oh yeah, that's one of our in jokes. And then I was like, oh wait, that really happened in that movie.
It's not even an in joke. It's not even an in joke. Nicco, Kevin, and I all saw the movie together, and when that scene happened, I just burst out laughing because I'm like, what is that scene?
It's part of the best act of that movie. Oh, the entire act on the beach is so good.
I was laughing because it's James Marsden, who is, by all accounts, very, very in shape, being jealous of all these other dudes who are very, very in shape.
Yeah.
And they had to keep a shirt on him, like,
so
just
he didn't look buff. Yeah.
To make him not look super buff.
You think he plays Klask?
Good. I think
that's a good question.
He probably plays Klask.
Well, so one of the things, actually, Chris, that you brought to mind with, like, a weekly game night as well, is that, for me, it gives you something to talk about that's not stressful to you in, like, your week, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, how was your week? Like, oh, I'm talking about work, things like that. Talking about politics, talking about the news, talking about, I don't know, whatever TV show you just watched. You play a board game, you have an instant conversation. And it's kind of great, and it's kind of new every time. So that's another thing that I really love about, like, the in-person aspect of it, but that can be gotten online too.
And piggybacking off of what Nicco said too, like when all of us get together and play something like Apex online, we're still talking about, like, work, YouTube stuff, like all that kind of things that doesn't, like, really leave our brain because we're not truly into it. You know what I mean? Like we're playing Apex, we're not really focusing on it. We lose a lot.
Legends. Whenever we lose a lot because we're just not paying attention, or we're pinging closed doors from 700 meters away. It's a good time.
But with a board game, you're kind of, like, focusing on the game because you're like, well, what's this rule? What's that rule? We got to keep it all, like, as part of the game, and the game's not, like, running itself for you. You're kind of running the game, so it kind of forces you to kind of focus in and get involved and get invested.
It's tough too because early on in life you usually play, like, Chutes and Ladders or Monopoly, and you get this this assumption of board games that they're all just kind of that, and so it's only, like, if you're lucky later in life that starts to come out of that shell almost. And on that note, Justin, I want to ask you what your general thoughts are on tabletop in the online age. But before I do that, I want to say, if you are watching this in the YouTube sphere, or if you're listening in the audio realm, leave us a nice little review or a comment. Let us know what your favorite tabletop game is. We may have something in the works down the road to do a board game themed thing online. We've been talking about it, so we want some feedback on stuff that you'd like to see us play here on Crub. So let us know all that stuff. If you are new to any of those, make sure to either follow or hit the subscribe button, and I'll make you a deal. I always make you this deal. It's a good deal. People say it's the best deal. All you have to do is hit the button, and then if you decide later that you don't want to subscribe anymore, you can just hit it again. I hit my mic again. I'm gonna hit my mic every time I do those plugs.
Trade.
I'm just gonna keep doing it until I'm in my new set. Like that's just gonna keep happening.
Trade offer.
Some say it's the best deal. Some say it's the best deal. Nobody has deals better than this.
Trade offer. I give you weekly content. You give me one subscribe.
On
One number, yeah.
one plus one to validation. But yeah, so leave a comment, leave a review, leave a like, leave a rating, all those sorts of things. They really do help the channel in all of those different indexes and algorithms and all that fun stuff. If you want in on more of the fun, we do stream these live currently over on Twitch at twitch.tv/crub_official. Every Tuesday around 6:30 p.m. Eastern is our pre-show, and we have a pre-show and post-show where we hang out, talk to chat, usually have a good time, talk about the topics of the week that aren't specifically what we're talking about here on the podcast, and we play with soundboards a lot and stuff. So follow there as well.
Do it.
So Justin, do you have friends?
I wish
play
I
any
did.
board games?
No. So the thing that really got me into board games as like something that is not just like Kevin said, Monopoly, the things you play when you're a child. I go to a convention every year called PAX Unplugged, and PAX Unplugged is my friend group from Philadelphia. We all get together and we go to the convention in Philadelphia, and it's a convention all about board games, card games, like everything in between. And I would go to these conventions and I would go and get new board games to play, and then I would leave the convention, say goodbye to all my friends, and then get back home and realize I bought $100 worth of board games with nobody to play with them. And it kind of got a little defeating at a point, because I was like, man, I really enjoyed this like weekend of just sitting at a table at PAX Unplugged and playing board games with all my friends. Why can't I have that all year round with my friends? With like something like
Sonic have that?
Why can't Sonic have that? So it's really made me think more of games that I think that should have like an online version that's not just Tabletop Simulator, because I've noodled around a lot with Tabletop Simulator in the past, and it's exact. Like, it's exactly what you need to play the board game. But the issue with it is, because it's so exact, there's so many different ways in interacting with the board and the board game that I end up fighting Tabletop Simulator more than actually playing the board game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, they have an option in Tabletop Simulator to flip the table. So if anyone clicks that button, the game you're playing just starts flying into the air. And it can just happen. You just click the button and like everything just goes whoosh. So like, it does everything it needs to do to like faithfully recreate the board game that you want to play with your friends online. But you have to be familiar enough with the system of Tabletop Simulator to actually like get everything out of it, in my opinion.
Agree.
Funny enough, one of the things I played at PAX Unplugged that taught me that I actually really liked it was they had a big Pokemon TCG booth. And it's been my recent vice of going out and playing in Pokemon TCG events and then buying decks for everyone that you're talking to at the podcast right now to play with me, because I'm like, please play with me. I can't buy all these cards and not play with them. Please, for the love of God, someone play with me.
He literally was at my house just like pulling cards. He literally was doing pack openings in my bedroom.
In your bedroom.
I was trying to help you out a little bit the last time it came up we have a little Pokemon thread in our personal server, right? We just post Pokemon stuff in there. And you just came in and it's like, yeah, I just bought 20 packs and they threw in a free box or something. And I was just like, oh, you didn't get the one you wanted. If you look at this link, you can see the price for the very specific card you're wanting, and it might be cheaper than getting all the packs, Justin. Just a thought. And you're like, no,
he likes the gotcha element. Yeah, he likes the Genshin element of it.
The Genshin.
Yeah, he does that,
not say
but
that,
he does that.
Guilty.
Genshin Anonymous.
I watched him do gotcha in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, he can't get away. He can't get away from it.
I've been doing gotcha in Like a Dragon Ishin. It's getting everywhere.
Yeah.
Justin's winning.
I guess I did.
Yeah,
I guess I did gotcha at the casino. So
exactly, you're at the granddaddy gotcha. But the insidious thing about Pokemon cards is like, hey, the game's fun, right? Like, I had the Game Boy cart as a kid, so I was very familiar with it. but also, especially nowadays, the art on the cards is so good that you feel compelled to buy it, even if you're never going to play it. But then if you do that, you're stuck with the card and you're like, now what? Now I have to consider sleeves. I have to consider a sleeve for the sleeve. I have to consider which binder will not bend the cards if it's stored over time. I have to consider which way I store it, the temperature I store it, right? The card games are like an insidious other thing, because like tabletop games are one thing, but you put it in a box usually and you put it away. Cards? Oh.
Not
No,
even,
thank you.
not even to mention.
I
Like,
keep buying them, but no thank you.
And well, the other thing about like the longevity, if we want to even talk about like that kind of stuff, right, for physical tabletop type of games, right? Like Chris, to your point, like what binder, like what things like will keep it not degrading over time, but like even then, there are more than the elements at play here. You know, you got to have people in your life who will like treat it with respect and everything, and not just like, you know, I guess for slight anecdote, I inherited a stack of records, like vinyls, and I mean a stack. And for those of you who know, you're supposed to store vinyls upright so that they don't warp.
Yeah,
these have been in heat, sideways on top of each other, so they are warped as all hell. And so I imagine the same thing would happen for something like a tabletop or like a trading card game and things like that.
Yep. You have to store them upright. The binder can't tilt. You have to make sure the binder you're buying isn't even to a point where like the plastic pages aren't bundling up in a weird way in the back of the binder, because that can bend the cards. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh my God.
and then on top of all
thankfully,
sorry, you go.
I was going to say, thankfully, a lot of card games nowadays have made it a little bit easier to digitize that stuff. Like, I haven't seen a card game yet that I know of, and I'm not super into the scene, where you can take a picture of your card and then you have it in your digital portfolio. Like, we played the original Pokemon TCG online app before they just rebooted it with another one. That's the same thing, but better. And we kind of had to struggle through the fact that they didn't update the decks pretty much ever. So you had like really old decks, and you could, every time you get a Pokemon card pack nowadays, they give you a little scan thing that gives you a pack of cards, but it's not the pack that you bought. It's just another free gotcha. It's another free pull in the game. And so I remember there was a point where there was a specific Giratina that I really wanted. It was a really nice looking Giratina. I think I got it in the end. But it was like a Giratina GX Super whatever. I don't care. But it was like a reverse hollow super shiny. Just for the art, I wanted it. And then I got it and I was like, this is just an NFT. Like, I just realized that I don't own it, so I don't care. No. And I haven't played the card game online since.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to just put a QR code on every card.
Like, obviously they want to keep it limited because, you know, it would be tough, because then you have to scan a card in such a way that you've scanned it once and then it's registered. Like, they each have to have their own they'd have to be NFTs,
like,
essentially.
They have to have
like an
thousands
Internet
codes.
of Things tag or something like that. Yeah.
Because otherwise, Justin could show me his card, I could scan it and get the card, and then they don't make their money on me getting addicted. Or
well,
whatever.
they actually do have that technology. They're using it in clothing nowadays. Like I said, it's called the Internet of Things, and you can use it to like register, like tell if a shoe or something is like a legitimate shoe from like Nike or something like that. I don't know if they have it fully implemented, but it's there. Like, the tech exists.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's interesting because a lot of like games like Magic became fully accessible solely because of the online game, because so many cards became, I mean, it's its own economy at a point. And so for you to be able to, you know, play Magic the Gathering online, or I guess Hearthstone is technically a card game too, but it's not a physical card game as far as I know. It's just a digital card game. But like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Online exists. There are like several Yu-Gi-Ohs online. It made it more accessible to a wider swath of players, and it has that online component if it works and isn't bad, which the Pokemon app was.
That's
I guess
fair.
that can tie back into the main topic, actually, because one big card game that doesn't have that, and of course I'm bringing this up, is the Digimon card game, which
they have a Digimon.
Yeah.
They have a card game?
Yeah, they do.
they do. Awesome card art. Apparently the game's really fun to play. Like, I think it's one of the top selling card games right now, even. But to the point of everything going on here, there's no app or online thing, right? They have a training app that tells you how to play, but there's no part where you Ironically, the Digimon, the digital monster thing, has no part where you then make it digital, right? So I'm in a server, and what people will do, they'll set up their webcam and point it at like their playfield, and that's how they play online. And you have to trust that the webcam glitching out isn't them like shuffling cards around or some weird stuff. And it's just like, that's too much hassle.
So fascinating that they just haven't even tried.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's nuts.
So what I know is that they made that card game during COVID. So like, first off, no one's playing that game in person. So no one was buying the cards. So it wasn't making so much money at the beginning. And now because it wasn't making any money, Japan got super far ahead in printing cards that now America is just catching up. So like every month there's a new set coming out for it. And it's just like a rat race of trying to catch up between each other.
Yeah. And
I was
even
going to
then
say,
with card games in general, not to cut you off, Nicco, but with card games in general, one of the issues you run into is constant power creep because they need to keep selling you cards. And the only way to do that is to make them competitively viable or to hard reset and say, these cards are the only ones you can use. And in an online sphere, that's much less enjoyable than in the physical sphere. Like, obviously, you don't have to pay real money in the online games usually to get those cards, but it when you know that they're unlimited and it's artificially limited versus in the card game where, you know, there is that element that's built in, that it is a thing you're supposed to collect all the cards in the same way that you collect all the Pokemon or all the ones you want. It makes it harder because, you know, your old Charizard that you have sentimental value towards is useless now because a Phanpy has the same HP as it now, you know?
There's a great video on that. I'll try and put it in the show notes about how like the max used to be like 120 hit points, and now you can just play from your hand a card with like 200 plus hit points.
Like Justin, you were playing in the like the GX stuff online, and you've been building a couple decks for Pokemon in general. But I remember you were playing online, and you were like, "Oh, I have this really cool deck," and I don't remember what the Pokemon were. You can elaborate on it, but I remember you were playing like this specific deck that had a bunch of GX cards, and I was just like, I don't like that I don't find that as fun. Like, it's just kind of, you have the setup and you win. Like, it's almost like Yu-Gi-Oh now, where the whole way to play is to stop the other person from playing instead of to have it be card chess, you know?
Yeah, because the way that
dude, one of our
the way that deck worked is you would set up a card, and that card will let you draw a card, and then you would then draw a card from your deck, and then you'd have another card in your hand that you can then play to draw more cards from your deck. And then you'd get this one specific Pokemon, which was a Miraidon, and you put the Miraidon on your bench. The ability then allows you to summon 2 more Pokemon from your deck onto your bench. Then you summon another Miraidon to come on. That Miraidon can now search your deck again and put 2 more cards onto the bench. So you load up your entire bench, and then you have the specific Raikou. And this Raikou's ability is for 2 energy. It does 20 damage for each Pokemon on your and your opponent's bench. So you load up your bench, and then you fire off with a huge attack in your second turn, and your opponent basically has no way to defend themselves.
Yeah, like you just win. And
okay, the short for that is just going to be Chris zooming in on me with the increasing tinnitus sound in the background as Justin says all that.
Like, that doesn't sound fun. Yeah, for you, it's fun, right? You get to set it up and go like, "Wow, look how cool I am." But yeah,
for your opponent, you're just like sitting there and you're watching them play the game for 20 minutes.
I never
that was
really
the thing.
processed it, but Kevin put it correctly with the chess. Yeah. What were you saying, Nicco? Sorry, you keep getting cut off.
One of our friends is a huge Magic guy. One of me and Justin's mutual friends is a huge Magic guy, and he was telling us about some guy who was just not very nice to him. So he brought out his deck that just doesn't let the other person play.
It's a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, it's actually a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. It's straight up. It's if people BM you, then you turn around and use a deck that just says, "Hey, I'm playing now." Like, you're not.
When are we making the Crub card game?
We should.
We're making the Crub trading card game, dude.
We'll release
Who has the least?
We'll release one card of Moriarty. That's the one that has the least health.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
I feel like Trav has the least health.
Trav has the least health?
Yeah.
Trav is a glass cannon. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Like, he would hit once and win, but if you get the first turn.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas I'm the opposite. I can't land a hit, but I can take a bunch of hits, but then when I land one, you're done.
We should make the card game that the only way to play is you just roll d20s, and that determines who wins.
Oh, I know a drinking game like that.
You would know a drinking game
That's
like
not,
that.
but that's not the Crub card game.
Oh, that's true.
I want to pay for like really high quality Crub art and like different variants of us and reverse hollows, and then you just roll a d20 and that's the whole game. Like there's nothing else on the cards. It's just
pictures of us.
Yeah.
They're just basically baseball
that's
cards
true.
where they just have nothing but pictures of people on them, and then you just roll dice.
Kevin would be very balanced. Kevin would be a very balanced character, I think. And I feel like Chris would be our like home base, like shield type character. Because Chris is a protector, a natural protector.
Oh, that's me. Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
And Chris is like, oh
So
yeah,
the
that
problem
is
with
me.
this one, you wouldn't be able to find anyone on Earth to play this because no one would have it. Is the counter issue. Unlike all these other games where people play it, but they're just not near you. This is like you'd wander up to Mount Fuji.
It'll be
and, like,
online only. It'll be an online card game.
Like no one's playing it. You're like, what am I doing?
Well, that brings me back. That brings me back to my question from a while ago, and it's that, Chris, does Digimon even generate revenue in the year 2023?
The card game does.
Yes.
The card game is just
Is
like
it really?
it's like a top 5 card game now.
It
right?
is. It is. It's like it's.
I
It's
mean,
like right
is it
behind
5 out of
Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!
5 or-
Magic, I think.
Okay, so it's 4 out of 4.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you the big 5 that's happening right now. It's Digimon, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, and then funny enough, One Piece. One Piece is a trading card game
tracks.
now, and that one's huge.
That tracks.
Another Bandai Namco card game, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the game Marvel Snap that everybody clearly plays, and it definitely wasn't just an advertising campaign. Like everyone clearly, that game just has 400 trillion downloads, and people drive in their cars while playing it because they like it so much.
That was
Clearly.
a hot week when that was a thing. And then it stopped.
I have a Taco Bell card game
You do.
that I ended up not wanting to play it because of how much of a shill I felt like playing it. Like it, because I bought it as like a haha funny joke, and then I was like, all right, I might try to get people to play this. I should learn the rules first so that I don't have to have people learn them with me. And so then I tried learning the rules, and it just was shilling Taco Bell products left and right.
We go out of our way to throw Whoppers at Justin. There's no reason not to play the Taco Bell card game anymore.
Okay, that's fair.
We can get
That's fair.
sponsored. We could get a sponsorship.
I was gonna
We
say,
should
yeah,
do a
maybe
sponsored
if Taco Bell
game night.
Yeah. If somebody would
Can
sponsor
we?
us to play the Taco Bell card game, we will play the Taco Bell card game. Absolutely.
Taco Bell's gonna do
apropos
it.
of nothing, there's a Mr. Pibb Doom clone.
There
I just
is a
wanted to say
Mr. Pibb
that
Doom
for the
clone.
record.
Yo, that's sick.
Chris, that's the
awesome.
short too for the YouTube shorts and TikTok. You just I say that and then it's just footage underneath of that and mobile game ads. There you go.
The 4 seconds shorts really, those do well.
Those are the ones that hit.
I need clarification on how you're a shill playing the Taco Bell board game, because there's the inherent issue, right? But is a rule like you have to enthusiastically say "live Moss" when you move your piece? Like, what crosses the line here to where it's like uncomfortable?
It's the I think it's the solving of hunger points with specific Taco Bell meals that these people want delivered.
Okay.
And if you want to play the Taco Bell board game, go to tacobell.com and put in code LIVECRUB, and you'll get $5 off your order of Taco Bell board game. It's
won't
just,
complain to
it's
us
just
when it doesn't
Monopoly,
happen.
but worse.
I want that.
Don't give these people viruses. They're gonna go to a virus-ridden website.
Go to tellthebell.com, the Taco Bell survey, and tell them you want a Crub Taco Bell board game.
Tell the Bell, if you put a gun to my head and said, "Is this an official Taco Bell domain?" I'd probably just pull the trigger for you, because that is like spot on. That could go either way. I don't know if that's real.
Oh man,
Pull the trigger.
Tell the Bell.
it's up there with livemoss.biz.
I'm still stuck on
We
this
could get
board
that
game.
domain.
Are you playing an Uber driver?
I think you play a delivery person. I think
and you're
They better
delivering.
pay you like at least $1 an hour for that.
that's what I'm saying. Like
That's
you
the
kind
usual
of
rate
need.
for driving delivery.
That's why I felt weird playing it, because I was like, oh, they maybe should be paying you minimum wage to play this board game.
Is there a
We
bonus
should-
card
round
game.
called the fourth meal?
Oh, we should build this game up to make it more successful than the One Piece card game.
We should
that
do
gets
that.
number
Yeah,
5.
we can do that. We can do that. Yeah.
But we'll just pay for a shit ton of Disney advertising and just make it like Marvel Snap, where people clearly play it.
Yeah, good point.
I love investing so much into this thing that we don't get a return on.
No, it's fine.
We could buy billboards for kind of cheap, like cheaper than other advertisements. Or we could just buy like advertising space on like pirating websites.
We could just like
Instead of porn. Yeah, that'd be preferable.
yeah.
Yeah.
We could just spray paint our logo onto walls and just not pay anybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Let's put Crub on the Crub link tree, which doesn't exist, on a QR code and stick it around our respective cities.
Would it be illegal for us to advertise someone else's product on a billboard?
That's a good
question, actually.
Yeah,
Like, could we just put in like impact font by the Taco Bell board game and just a photo of it? Nothing bad or incriminating or something they would be like, oh, that's bad.
Just telling them to buy it.
Yeah, like it has to be legal, right?
Only if we go like chaotic neutral on that, and we put it only near gyms.
Oh, true. When they go to try and like get us to settle the lawsuit, we have to make them recover the cost of the billboards and not us pay them.
I thought you were about to say we have to make them play the board game with us so we can finally play it.
No, that's how we get people to play the board game with us.
We just have a judge like presiding over us playing the Taco Bell card game against Taco Bell's lawyers.
Yeah. Oh my god, I like
Your
that
Honor,
idea.
motion to make my move.
We challenge
roll a
them to
D20.
I love the idea of challenging them to a round of their own card game in order to win the lawsuit.
If they don't do it, they're bitches.
Okay.
Like
So
that's true.
anime.
we
I have a
win.
question.
We win morally.
I have a question. Do they know how to play the Taco Bell board game?
They're gonna fucking learn. It's just
that's a good
legalese.
Well, because you would look. Here's my thing. It would feel less corporate if the board game were like ingredients and you had to make a good taco or the perfect taco or something like that. You had to deck build like a good taco.
None of that Fisher Price little tiny oven stuff. No.
Easy Bake Oven?
What are those called? Easy Bake. Thank you. I couldn't remember the
Yeah,
name.
no, it's the tiny oven. The tiny oven.
The tiny oven. The Crub tiny oven.
Oh,
See
buy
it
it.
soon with the every copy of the Taco Bell card game made by Crub will have
Dude,
a tiny oven.
Is
Our whole brand is just infringing on rights at this point.
is Easy Bake Oven a tabletop board game?
Oh, I think it has to
I'm
be.
inclined to
Is
say
that-
yes.
No, no.
Would that make Shrinky Dinks a tabletop board game?
I would say that an Easy Bake Oven is LARPing.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
I was on board with this, but this already feels like it's about to become a hot dog, a sandwich tier thing, and I think we need to put the genie. We should put it back in the bottle. Yeah,
Put the glizzy back in the bottle.
Put the glizzy
Bottle
back in
glizzy.
the bottle.
Yeah.
The Crub bottled glizzy. That's gonna be.
Jesus Christ.
Wow, they have it.
We're off the rails.
Yeah,
That was
we've
good.
been off the rails.
Bottled glizzy.
Let me reorganize the rails here a bit.
I cook real chicken in an Easy Bake Oven.
How does that light bulb work? Because the Easy Bake Oven's just a light bulb.
You're not gonna sell that one at all. You're just gonna leave
It's just
that
a
one.
light bulb. Like, I don't know how you would cook it.
Low and slow.
Find out, Justin.
It's like a smoker. You just light it on fire.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be a good clickbaity YouTube title. I turned an Easy Bake Oven into a pressure cooker. Here's what happened.
It's just a bomb. You can't do that.
Turned an Easy Bake Oven into a pressure cooker. I thought you were going like, I used an Easy Bake Oven for a ghost kitchen. Here's what happened, which A, also bomb, but B, a pressure cooker.
I cooked 15 Crub Mr. Beast burgers in an Easy Bake tiny oven.
Why are they Crumb
Like the
Mr.
Taco
Beast
Bell
burgers
card
now?
game.
Why are we taking
Don't
it?
imagine.
We're a ghost kitchen.
Oh, that's
Imagine
true.
going on to Uber Eats and just seeing like a restaurant called Hard Bake Ovens, and it's just like undercooked, just like raw chicken on like a raw bun.
We'll put that. So we'll split the billboard in half. It'll be buy Taco Bell card game, and then buy our Easy Bake Oven, and it's raw chicken.
You heard it here first, folks. Crub likes their chicken medium
Raw.
Why don't they have Easy Bake stovetops? I want to cook egg.
Easy Bake.
Want to cook egg?
I want to cook egg.
Singular.
Man,
Do you want an egg? That's a story we should.
We'll tell that story eventually.
Well, we could tell it right now rather than wait.
Yeah, we can do that now. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, but
Okay.
this is already in the Crub tier of podcast as it is. We're already here. So there was a fun time a couple of years back where one of our buddies and I were hanging out, and we went to visit his dad because his dad was like, this is one of my closest friends. So I was like, I'm family to their family type thing. And so we went to get breakfast, and we went to this little local diner, and his dad orders an egg. And he's like, I don't want this egg. He just wanted one hard-boiled egg. And the entire rest of the breakfast, every 2 or 3 minutes, he would insist, like, do you want a egg? Not an egg, a egg. And we were just dying the entire time because he kept offering the egg that he bought and paid for but didn't want. And he was like, I don't know why I ordered this. I didn't want an egg.
Didn't they do that again with a corn dog?
Wait, yeah, the corn dog.
Yeah, then he got a corn dog another time where we were at another restaurant. And he was like, I don't know why I ordered this. I don't want this corn dog. So we just left the corn dog in the middle of the table the entire time. And then we made him take it home and strap it in with the seatbelt. So I don't know how long that was still there, but it was in his fridge for a while.
Wow. Legendary. That's absolutely legendary.
So the best card in the Crub card game is a egg.
A egg.
A egg.
And it's just a picture of like an egg on. Like, is the shell on, shell off?
The shellers are the Exodia pieces that surround the central egg.
Ooh, you build the
There you
egg.
go. You build the
They should
egg.
make a Chow Garden card game.
A Sound
They should do a lot
Garden
of
card
things
game?
with the Chow Garden.
Chow Garden.
Oh, I don't know what that is. Soundgarden
know.
card game sounds cool, though. Just like Chris Cornell card, and I don't know any other members of Soundgarden.
A chow garden.
So Justin, back to the topic at hand. What was the next part of what we were aiming to talk about with board games, card games, the online capabilities of them, or the limitations that a lot of them have, and how some of them do overcome them by having an online element or having some form of that.
Yeah, so there's something that, thank you for bringing this back, because there's some games that I was playing at that.
Do you want an egg?
I would love one. So when I went to PAX Unplugged, there were a bunch of games that I ended up really, really liking, and I was playing them, and I would look them up afterwards. So I was like, how can I get myself a copy of this game? And then it turns out they have like a version of the game on Steam that you can just buy and play with your friends, just like you would like the normal board game. One that comes up to mind, one that comes up to mind for me is Munchkin, which is a board game where it's basically a game where you're trying to level up your RPG character, and to do that you're slaying monsters basically, and then the monster shows up and you have to be stronger than the monster, and you have cards in your hand that make you stronger, but you also have cards in your hand that you can play against somebody else, or you can play that gear card on the monster itself, so you can make the monster stronger. And the reason why you'd want to do that is sometimes when your friends are trying to level up and they're fighting a monster, you're like, well, I'm going to take this gear card and attach it to the monster. So now the monster's harder for you to beat. You can't beat it now. How are you going to get past this?
Yeah.
So it's a game all about
really
trying to level yourself up, win the game, while also basically sabotaging all your friends along the way. And they have versions of that on Steam. They have other games like we talked about before with all of the different card games. They all have their own online portals in terms of like playing with other people.
Yeah, you guys really loved Munchkin back in the day.
We played it a lot.
I was not a huge fan of it just because I didn't love that like really competitive aspect to it, and I thought it took a long time.
Yeah, because by the time
was the only thing.
By the time
me.
you get to the end of the game, it's just everyone fighting tooth and nail to try and stop the other person from winning, so that way they can win. And then at the end, everyone just becomes like devoid of any resources whatsoever to win, and then one person pulls a really lucky draw and then just win the game.
Yeah, and actually that actually brings up a good point about tabletop game. Unless Kevin and Chris, you have anything to say about Munchkin specifically? Okay.
Never heard of it.
It brings up a good point about tabletop games is like, how do we deal with like the politics surrounding them depending on your group? Because that
rephrase that. I'm not sure.
Munchkin. Let me go back to why I brought it up in the first place. Is that in Munchkin, one of those things that happens quite often that I just don't love is there's this like negotiation that you kind of have to make where if you're in mid or last and you know you're not going to win, you have to back somebody or else you get continuously targeted.
Oh,
and if you
this
don't
is like in Mario Party when you're like, all right, I'm going to cut a deal and screw Justin over with Kevin every single game we play ever. I see.
Except for the Brody one. There was the Brody one, too.
There was the Brody
where we
one.
all just agreed to just not let Brody play the game.
Get anything.
Yeah.
And I guess I can't say I hate it in every context, because in like a Mario Party context, that's hilarious. And in the context of like a hidden role game, like those alliances can be kind of key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hidden role games are made exclusively better by the online environment.
You think so?
In my opinion.
Because I think that something like because the biggest hidden role game nowadays is Among Us. But if you play something like Mafia in a room with a bunch of friends, there are just so many little tells that you can't see online because you're behind a screen.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I suppose I more mean the management part of it.
That's true.
Where if you're playing Mafia and or Werewolves, they're the same game. You have to have one person managing the game, and if they're not good about it, you have to like restart the whole game.
Everything falls apart. Yeah. There is a game called One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and they have a phone app that manages the game for you, and you just put the phone in the middle of the table and you press play whenever you're ready to go.
Yeah.
It's actually really
That's cool. I'd play that.
Yeah.
And speaking of phone integration, I think we do have to shout out, it's not a card game or a tabletop game, but I think we have to shout out the progenitor of the current era of online compatibility with these sorts of games, which is Jackbox.
I love Jackbox, yeah.
Because you saw Jackbox in real time evolve to fit the era, to fit the online environment that it was succeeding in, and to fit like streaming culture, Twitch culture in particular was the main impetus for it. And I think that there are a lot of board games and card games based off of the back of that. And in the card game space, Magic the Gathering Online is probably the one that you would say, I mean, that revolutionized that game completely.
100%.
Yeah.
And so it's because of a game like Jackbox and a lot of what the Jackbox team just does that we get to even have a lot of this discussion, because I don't know that it inevitably would have happened that someone else would have come along and spawned that revolution of online compatibility with these casual I don't want to call it a board game, but it's kind of a board game. It's kind of a social experience game, I guess is what you could call it.
Well, and actually, if you recall, Cards Against Humanity was a very big part of sort of establishing our friendship, you, Kevin.
And Cards was tough because they didn't have an official Cards Against Humanity game for forever online.
Yeah, I mean,
once they do.
They don't have an official one that I know.
Okay, they don't still.
Pretended Zizzy is not them.
By this point, they might have an official one, but everyone used Zizzy.
Yeah, and people still do.
People still do.
And that was really another one. Like, it's a bootleg Cards Against Humanity that you just play online via, you can do it on your phone or whatever.
Which Cards Against Humanity, if you don't know what Cards Against Humanity is there's a card, there's a topic card in the middle, and everyone has a hand of cards that answer that question. And then the judge of that round picks the answer that fits the question best.
Yeah.
Or funny. If you've played Apples to Apples, it's adult Apples to Apples.
It's Apples to Apples for real friends.
that you can be in the same room with and say some really uncouth things.
Yeah. Although I did play it with my family several times and they loved it.
It's the kind of thing that really does just like breed really great conversations while playing the game. Because you just get like really outrageous things that get put together, and then you can kind of like start riffing on that, and then you start making inside jokes.
It's kind of a magical experience that it's a high that I've been chasing for quite some time, because that's why I got that Wavelength game that I talked about back at the beginning of the podcast, is because I was like, oh, this will be a good conversation starter to get some, good thoughts going. And then people just concentrate on the game too much, and it's like, man, it's so hard to find a game like Cards Against Humanity where you don't have to pay super attention, and you can have good conversations and inside jokes and just build that
I think some depend on the audience and the topic, but it also depends on the crew. I mean, the audience is one side of it, but like that game, absolutely. I think when we played it, we did have discussions around it when we played it in person.
Yeah, we just kind of stopped playing the game for like 20 minutes, and then we were like, all right, what's the next one?
Is that the one we played in February?
Yeah, it's the one with the big style. So I should explain this one. I realize this is the thing about talking about tabletop games is a lot of tabletop games, nobody's ever played them. So Wavelength it's a big dial, and you pick up a card and you say, it's like more likely to or less likely to do something. And then you as the player have to judge where that lands on the dial. And then you say like, okay, so my guide is to try and get the person to be on this part of the dial. And it's less likely to or more likely to. And I want them to be like 25%.
Yeah.
So it's a covered dial. So the host or the host of that round will look at where, like, they'll spin the dial. They'll look at where it turns out. Then they have to pick a topic that fits what the audience of the room, what you think they will say.
Yeah.
Then they close the dial, and the rest of the room guesses where, they judge where it is. So if it's like cutest person in the room versus least cute person in the room, and I say JTAR 9.
Then we put it all the way to cute. Right.
And
then
it would be all the way at 100%.
It all the way to cute. Yeah.
And then that would be correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of have to judge, and like you get points if you do the points version. You get points based on how close you are, or the host gets points based on winning that round, that sort of stuff.
And even then, like, that description is almost too nitty gritty for the idea that I'm trying to get at, which is I like conversation starter games. I like games where the players have agency and input in that way.
Yeah. No, I think we've explained all of them now. I think because we went back to that one. I think every game we've talked on, we've explained, which is a good thing that we didn't think about. So I'm glad we got around to that.
Yeah.
I think with that one, the issue was just there was so much alcohol flowing at that point.
That's true.
That, like, we were pretty focused on it for a while, and I think it was fun. But at a point, we just kind of shiny objected to something else.
Was that the day that I made 10 boxes of mac and cheese? And as soon as I started, I was like, I shouldn't be doing this.
No, that was a couple days before.
That was it was a couple.
That
days
was
before.
the last day we were there.
That was the last day.
You were like, okay, Justin, you do this, because I was sober and you weren't, and you were like, Justin, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
No, the mac and cheese I did.
Oh, you did do it, right? Because you dumped all the cheese.
Because you guys were all playing Smash or whatever, and I loaded up the mac and cheese, and this is after like at least 15 margs, like at least 15 frozen slushy margarita.
Oh
things.
Yeah, no, we were going hog wild that night. To be honest,
we were trying to get rid of everything.
And so I put, and there's like 8 of us here, so I put the mac and cheese in the I put the water on, I put the mac and cheese in once it starts to boil, obviously, and then I stood there and I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm seeing many double. But I was like, no, I've already started. I'll be okay.
I
ate the mac and cheese. It was good.
Maybe don't take
I added
this advice
so much
home.
fucking cheese. We had a whole pound of cheese, like shredded cheese. Mm-hmm. I threw the whole thing in at the end.
Because we made
the
tacos
cheesiest
and we
mac
ate,
you could ever have.
It was a 2-pound bag. We ate half the bag with the tacos we made, and then the other half we were like, well, it's got to go somewhere. We just threw it all to one batch of mac and cheese.
So as I mentioned earlier, we stream these live with pre and post shows, and obviously chat's interacting with what we're saying. 10 elements in the chat said, responsible friend making a ton of food for drunk people. And I mention that because it reminds me, Nicco, of a story we haven't told on the podcast yet. I think I am one of the most responsible people when drunk of all time.
Yeah.
Because I always end up cleaning up for everybody while, like, I hit a point of drunk where I'm just like, I'm going to take all these empty cans and put them in the trash.
Yeah, it's happened multiple times.
It's just my thing. I've cleaned up vomit, usually not mine, but caused by me. Don't worry about it.
Don't poke into that statement any.
No, but there was a specific one I'm thinking of, Nicco, that we should tell because it's a really good story. And it was the first time that drink only during the legal age of your country. We were 19. I think it was your 19th birthday was around that week.
Hey man, they can't prove Britain, they can't prove any of this. Everything is a bit. Everything's a joke.
Yeah. So Nicco smuggled in a close to a handle of really bad. Was it Smirnoff?
It was a fifth. It was a fifth. It was a fifth of Smirnoff 100 proof.
Okay.
So it was like 50% alcohol, pretty like stronger than your normal like 40% vodka.
Yeah. And for some reason, we thought that Nicco had to smuggle it back home from school when we were like going home for his birthday that weekend for his birthday party thing.
Sorry, did you have it at school?
I mean, where else would you get the booze?
I mean, I received it there.
Continue.
Well, I was I hid it inside of a drum. I had a drum and I hid it inside of a drum.
There are so many layers to the story I had never heard before.
There's so much here. Yeah. It's just a continuous onion. But so what Nicco did was he poured this fifth of Smirnoff into a pomegranate juice container.
Yep.
That way it'd be inconspicuous with a little bit of pomegranate juice in there so that it was still colored like pom juice.
Yeah, and the pomegranate juice specifically because the pomegranate juice was darker than like most other juices. So then when you water it down with the vodka, it still looked like pomegranate.
Yeah, and plus the container is like pink anyway, so it kind of covers that up. He then takes this already smuggled, covered up pomegranate juice container and puts it inside the drum so that it's further smuggled.
Yep.
Which is clearly what you do with any juice that is not clearly alcohol. You just put it in there anyway. We get to Nicco's house and we start drinking. Mind you, Nicco's parents are very responsible people, and under supervision, I'm sure they wouldn't have cared.
Absolutely. They would not have given us.
So we didn't need to do this. Yeah. There was no reason for us to do this, but we start drinking, and several things happened over the course of that following night, because this was around the time that Majora's Mask 3DS was coming out. And so I was telling Nicco about Majora's Mask, and I was really excited for it. And so we downloaded Majora's Mask on his Wii because the emulator wouldn't work. So we spent $10 on the Wii shop. That was already our first mistake.
Yeah.
Followed by, as I'm loading up Majora's Mask, Nicco is pouring shots, and Nicco is the heaviest pourer this side of someone who's not an alcoholic.
At least at that time. I was, because I didn't believe that the bottom line of the cup was 1 ounce. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's not enough.
So we have, Red Solo.
It's such
we have
an
Red Solo
alcoholic statement. I'm sorry.
I was 19.
We have Red Solo cups. He's pouring a significant, like a full, the 2 mouths full for shots. And we're just doing these shots, and we drink this entire pomegranate juice bottle between the two of us in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
All the while I'm playing Majora's Mask, just casually going along, and I have this specific run that I do where I get like 12 masks on the first day, and I'm just vibing. And then it starts hitting, and we pause the game in the store. So the Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask shop theme is playing in the background for the rest of the night.
The game does not get touched again.
But the other best was there was this dude that we both knew.
That's where I was going next.
I'll call him Roy. And we literally were like, I checked my Snapchat in the morning, and we literally had my phone on the floor screaming his name and just cracking
So the
up.
version I remember was we started sending him snaps because he sent a snap to us or something, and this is the part where we browned out for the night.
Yeah,
this is the
I
only
didn't
part where we
remember.
browned
I didn't
out.
remember sending the snaps.
It was a week later we got back to school, and he was like, "Oh, I stopped viewing them so I could show you some of these." I don't know how your parents didn't hear this.
No, you're right. That's exactly how it happened. You're right.
I don't remember how your parents didn't hear any of this because we were screaming his name.
Yeah,
and just on the floor. It was like a found footage, like it was Blair Witch quality.
Yeah, it looked like Blair Witch. It was actually some pretty stunning cinematography. I do say so myself. We had Dutch angles going on and everything.
There was a lot of Dutch angles. So that's the first
Nicco's
part.
parents just in bed upstairs, just like,
and then you just hear someone in the background
screaming in the background.
Just
do you want to go down?
Well, and what's funny is that's going to do well for the audio realm.
Oh yeah, audio listeners, baby.
My favorite part of this is that Nicco's parents at this point were the type of people where if they did want to go to sleep and you made even the tiniest bit of noise, they would come down and say, "Hey, quiet down."
Oh.
We were screaming and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one of those days.
Oh man.
So that's part one of this story, and this is where this becomes a Rashomon story, where it splits off at a point because Nicco says that he's got to go to the bathroom, and I'll tell my side first here. So he's like, I gotta go pee. I'm like, okay, cool. So he goes upstairs because we're in the basement area. I'm sitting here just on Nicco's couch. The Majora's Mask shop theme is still playing. Chris, if you can, just put that in the background for this whole section. And so I'm just sitting on the couch, just...
For the audio listeners, he just like is laying back like a dead man,
slumped like a corpse. Yeah. And I am just there, and it feels like it's 40 minutes while this shop theme is playing. It was a long time. At some point, my brain just says, I need to stand up. So I stand up, and I casually walk over to the trash can, completely like unconsciously doing this, and I just perfectly vomit into the trash can, very nicely, politely. I then walk across like the 20-foot part of the basement to grab the Febreze from the other side of the room. Walk it back over, spray it 3 or 4 times. Walk it back, put it down where I found it. Go back to the couch, and then just back to slumped over. And so that's my part of the story. Again, the entire time, Majora's Mask shop theme playing.
Yeah.
On the pause menu.
And then we never drank again. So basically... So my half of that story, during that 40 minutes that Kevin was there alone, I went upstairs to emetophobes. Maybe don't want to emetophobes. You might want to skip forward a little bit, right? So I needed to throw up very, very badly. So I went to the toilet, and much like Tony Stark himself, I had the Iron Man reticle in my view, looking at this toilet. The seat was open and everything, right? It was prepared.
Jarvis, lift up the lid.
Yeah, and Jarvis locked on. We were good. We were ready to go. And I pulled the trigger, and it just went everywhere.
You ever see those scenes in Dragon Ball Z where like a giant laser beam just cuts through a mountain and like swerves diagonally? That's what I assume happened during this.
Full Jackson Pollock on the walls in the toilet, and I'm anything that got in the toilet was by pure coincidence, right? And I'm a loud puker, and that's what woke my mom up, who came over. And she just looks at me. She's like, you got to clean that up. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. And she was like, no. You got to do it now.
I remember this was prefaced, I think, at the time with, you had said something to the tune of like, she was like, oh, are you okay? And then you were like, oh, we drank, I'm sorry. And she's like, that's fine, whatever.
Oh, that's exactly, okay? That's exactly what happened. Yeah, I forgot about that part.
So it reconfirmed.
She's just being really gentle from what I've heard.
It reconfirms that they would have been fine with you drinking. So you didn't have to do this.
She was like, you could have just told us.
Yeah. And then it was, I'll clean it up tomorrow. No, you're going to clean it up right now.
Yeah, no, you got to. And then I tried my best to clean it up. Cue an 80s montage of just me shittily cleaning this wall with like a paper towel and trying to like scoop all of it into like a trash
Hence the
can.
40 minutes.
Oh, hence the 40 minutes. Absolutely. Yeah. I think I got like most of the toilet, but then the wall was still just like obliterated.
This is why I love drunk you at the time's thought process of like, oh, I'll just leave that overnight. I'll get back to that like later today.
Yeah,
I didn't even fester a little and get back to it.
I hadn't smelled like
it's like when you soak a pot, like when you have some stuff in the pot and you're like, oh, I need to soak it. You just soak the vomit.
So what he was going to do was just flood the entire bathroom, so that way when you open the door, it just flies out with water.
Oh yes,
he already did.
Like an
aquarium.
He already
had prior.
Like an actually. I'll put a dog door on the bathroom so that I can swim in and out of the bathroom full of water from floor to ceiling.
I don't want to think about Tears of the Kingdom anymore. Just swimming through vertically with the ascend power.
Yeah.
It's just jumping. Just Kevin's like, I need to get into the bathroom, and he just goes through the ceiling, and it just floods.
So anyway, Nicco comes down, and this is to end the story off. He goes, "You throw up too?" "Yeah." "You clean it up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm good." And again, I'm still slumped over, like just Majora's Mask theme still playing. And then we woke up in the morning, ate breakfast, and just didn't speak about it until later in the week.
That's right. This is I'm about to say the most middle school statement, even though this happened in undergrad. My mom made us a monkey bread.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So anyway, that's our story about board games.
Yeah.
And so that's going to all be in the Crub board game. We're going to have the Nicco vomiting all over the bathroom card.
That's the Exodia. You put the pieces together.
And it just becomes
that's gonna be
Nicco's bathroom.
That's gonna be on the Crub test. You have to pass the Crub test to be our audience member.
Guys, I
forgot what this episode was about until you brought it back just
I just got it. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Exodia card all comes together to be Nicco's towel.
Oh yeah.
no one else can use it.
Exactly.
No one else can use it. It's it has a 50-50 chance of being my roommate's towel.
So when you start the Crub board game, you pick your pieces like Monopoly, and only the Nicco piece can use the
towel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll
the
tell the towel
signature
story
equipment.
another day. That's another.
I think we might have told it at one point. I think we might have said it already.
Story.
I think in episode 1 of whatever Nicco was around for, it got teased and was like, we'll tell it later.
Yeah.
We're going to keep telling. We're going to keep pushing it off.
Yeah. We've told our prerequisite story for the day.
That's true.
Back to tabletop games and the internet.
I had one actual question before getting to the final question of the day, which is going to be like a little quick hitter. With something like a card game where it's something that you're meant to play with multiple people, do you guys question the viability of making something so expensive to walk through the front door to even experience whether or not you like the game in the first place? Because if you try something like a competitive video game or like a sport, like you play baseball, you can play baseball like just throwing a baseball around, and that's like $1. You can buy a ball. But to play a card game, something that is meant to be competitive, so where you have an edge or you have some sort of chance to win against your opponent. I think there was a video that came out not too long ago of someone comparing the top most viable decks in 10 different card games, and the cheapest one was Pokemon, and it was $72 to get a viable deck. Do you think that that's what's the efficacy of even getting into a card game in the first place if the cost of walking in the door is at least $100?
It depends on the card game and the availability of using proxies, and if you're willing to use a proxy to get in the door and see if you like the game and then spend the money. But I would argue that most people want that physical aspect over anything else, and so everyone that I've seen play a card game is a collector first and then also loves the card game, depending whichever card game it is. So that's my rebuttal to that, is that the market of people who want to play these games are going to play them regardless.
Well, and you get into them through the same crowd. So if you're exposed to one of them, odds are you'll be exposed to more of them over time as those people experience them. So if you're in a D&D group, it's probably going to become Magic at some point. It's probably going to become Warhammer at some point. There's a running thread of nerdism that you get through over time. By way of that sort of stuff. So I think that also helps in when you're talking about teen into adult years. But there's a reason a game, as much as I'm dunking on it, Marvel Snap exists, and it's purely digital, and it's also super ADHD, where you all move at the same time for some reason. I don't know why, but you do apparently. And it's because that game, as a result, is more accessible than a lot of card games. No kid knows the rules of the Pokemon card game. You play your own rules.
Agreed.
Because I have a Charizard, I'm going to play my Charizard. I don't have a Charmander. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm a child. I don't work in the mines. That's just how it is. So you make up your own rules in the meantime until you find a source of income, I guess, for stuff like card games. But board games, I think, is harder than card games, because card games have an easier word of mouth. You can get one card and get into it just because you like the card. With a board game, you got to have all the pieces ready, or the first base if there are expansions. Most kids that get into the Pokemon card game or Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, they get one cool card and they're like, "That's it, I'm in. I want to do this forever.
And I want to build a deck around this
know?
card. What do you mean I have to get 59 other cards that all have synergy with this one card?"
And Yu-Gi-Oh as well. One of my friends keeps a Blue Eyes White Dragon in their wallet.
Yeah, like it's exactly that. And so I think board games is almost harder, even though the cost is lower in the long term, because you have to spend however much it costs for that particular game. Like the Shovel Knight board game is like $40 minimum, and you have to like Shovel Knight going in for that to be worth it, even if it's a really cool game on its own.
That's fair.
But like then there's like a Catan. There's
Catan's a sick game.
Cones of Dunshire, for example.
Cones of Dunshire, let's go.
No, but yeah, any of those games, like they have a price point to them, or like even like a simpler one like Risk, or even like Battleship. Like those are like $30, $40 now to get them. Monopoly is like $60 sometimes, depending on the version you're getting. Like it's inflation has hit this specific economy pretty hard, and so I think it makes it harder for people to get into them unless they're simpler, almost, because it's Monopoly. You're going to spend $60 on it, but you're going to have it forever, and you're going to play that with anybody because it's Monopoly. Or like Sorry is one that comes to mind for me for some reason, because I played Sorry a lot as a kid, or Clue, or Life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Clue was my favorite. I love Clue.
Yeah, all of those, as they go up in price, you can justify them because they're easier, family games that you'll play forever, or like even like a Scrabble,
Yeah, or a catchphrase and Taboo.
Yep.
I will shout out something we haven't really touched on yet that can help, though. It doesn't really help for card games because you have the issue of needing to build a deck from a pool of thousands of cards potentially, right? But one thing, if you do happen to have it near you, a comic shop, like a good one,
yes,
it's pre-stocked with nerds, so you always have someone to play something with. But I'll shout out Pack Rat Comics in Columbus, Ohio. They're great. I don't know if they still do it, but for a time they did a thing where you would come in on like a Saturday night or something, and they'd just say, we're playing this board game. Everyone here will teach you how to play it. You don't really have to pay, I don't think. You just sit down and play it, and if you like it, you can buy it and go home. And that's kind of
awesome.
It's kind of cool, right?
Sick. Yeah.
I played some train board game that I know is popular. Ticket to Ride? Might be it.
That sounds familiar.
I played a bird board game once, in a similar scenario.
What is it? Wingspan?
Wingspan, yeah.
Yeah. And if you happen to have a good comic shop near you that does that, that's a great way to get in, right? If nothing else, you can sample it, which kind of helps with the issue you were talking about. If you don't have that near you, good luck.
Then
Thankfully, there's usually a good surplus of nerds, even in like the most rural of communities. So thankfully, like if you find a hobby shop, there's probably a comic area attached to it. It might not be active, but it doesn't seem to be hard to get people to want to join that sort of community. Because, like, for example, Justin, you've been going to local Pokemon stuff for Pokemon card game recently, because you were like, I'm buying these things, I want to play them, and like, I mean, tell us about that experience.
So my experience with it is, first off, my local shop, every event is on Tuesdays, so it makes this kind of awkward, because we, if you are not watching on the Twitch, we live stream all of these podcasts on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday.
Get fricked!
So it's a little bit trickier to find time to get out there. But my favorite way of doing it is when a new set of the Pokemon card game comes out, there's something called a pre-release. And they'll sell these boxes that are called build and battle boxes. And it gives you a 40-card deck that is ready to go. So you don't even have to worry about going through a sea of different cards to put a deck together. You just have a deck of cards. And then you get a couple extra packs of the new set. And you open them up. Whatever comes in those packs, you can then add it to your pre-made deck that comes in the box, and then you have a little tournament with everybody that's at the pre-release event. And depending on how many matches,
at the same level, basically.
Yeah, like you're all learning on the fly with how your deck
exactly
works.
Because they're all brand new cards. No one has any strategy with them, and nobody knows how to use them. And if you did have a strategy with them, there's chances are that strategy you built was for a different deck that you didn't get in your box. So. You're kind of SOL in that sense. But it's
the one pre-release I went to was awesome for that exact reason. Yeah, like everyone was just kind of on the same playing field, like even kids and adults. Like it's such a great way to, pardon me, sample a set. Also, you get cards early. That's cool.
You can't buy those cards like single packs for another like 2 to 3 weeks usually. So
the one thing that it's not great for, having like an expensive, like a high startup cost, right? Obviously, it's good for these companies' bottom lines and whatever. Obviously, it's not very consumer friendly to begin with. We want everything to be cheaper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it also doesn't do great to foster a community of
diehards.
Yeah, like it would attract a lot of sweaties. From what I
think that's
understand.
why, in the case of like a Pokemon, that's why the Pokemon company goes out of its way to try and foster these pre-release events, because they know that if you get in, you're probably addicted.
Yep.
You know, that's just how Pokemon works. It's always going to be that way.
And they have the brand appeal outside of like gaming that they could.
Yeah.
That's the one out of all of them that would. Attract people outside of the card game realm.
I mean, like the only reason that I really got into the Pokemon trading card game is I like Pokemon in the first place. Same thing for Chris and Digimon card game. Like, Chris loves Digimon. They've made a card game.
It was like what Kevin said. There was one card I saw I wanted, right? It was based on the first Digimon game. And I was like, I need that card. And then I started looking at the other cards, and I was like, these are pretty cool, too.
That's probably how Justin was with the Fire Emblem card game.
There is a Fire Emblem card game. It's discontinued now. It's the only kind of Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE merchandise you can get in this world. Because that game just doesn't exist anymore. They tried it. They re-released it. It didn't work the second time. They're like, we're never doing this again. And I am personally...
It's a shame, because that's Persona 4.5.
Yeah. Seriously, it really is.
Like, actually. Like, straight up, it actually is Persona 4.5. Because that was the Persona 5 team before they finished up 5.
You can look back at some of the old tweets on my account. I was like, listen, everybody is complaining for Persona on Switch. This is Persona on Switch. Play this.
Reading Justin's old
Never
tweets.
say that I allow you to look back at my old tweet. Never. There will eventually be something.
I just retweeted a lot of contests back in the day. Because I wanted free stuff.
Understandable.
We'll find something.
You can find something.
Yeah, no, it's gonna happen. If you find something, send it to us via email at crub@tacobelltellthebell.com.
Tell the bell.
Like go to tellthebell.com, and in the form, paste Justin's tweets.
God.
A representative will look at them immediately.
All right.
Man.
We're about an hour and 20 in. You guys want to call it? You think we hit everything we talked about?
Did you have another final question before?
I did. I wanted to get into that one as soon as we knew we were going to wrap it up for the night.
We could talk about vomit some more.
We could.
Yeah, we could talk about D&D. No, we'll do that on.
Well,
D&D
D&D was going to be the last thing I would have brought up. Is that D&D is also it's the tabletop game that you can just do for free.
Yeah,
well, that's true, because that's all a theater of the mind.
You can download PDFs, like you can just find, custom modules or whatever. You don't need to read the 5e manual to do D&D.
Yeah,
we had a chat in our one Discord server that was just fake D&D, where you just rolled a D20 and then role played based on whatever Nicco rolled.
Oh, dude, that was my favorite. I loved that. I would do that again. I would start that chat back up in an instant. I would do that. But I think D&D requires a little more forethought, and I'm just going to give a quick thought on D&D, and maybe we go around and do that. Are you okay with that,
Sounds
Justin?
good to me. Yeah, I completely forgot about I thought we talked about D&D, and then I realized we didn't talk about D&D. We were just talking about things that actually happened.
Yeah. My quick thought on D&D is that you have to know what you want out of it before you go into it, because there are other games with mechanics or lack thereof that might be better suited to what you want. That's number one. Number two is that you have to make sure that you're playing with people who are like-minded to you and who kind of want the same things out of the game. And number three, maybe there's no number three. Just have fun. Know yourself. Yeah. Oh, number three, don't be
tellthebell.com.
Yeah. Number three is don't be afraid to pull out if you're like getting too invested and you're not like feeling good about it, right? It's a fluid game. It's the type of game that can go in any direction. And I just, these are tips for people playing. You know what I mean?
It's very viscous.
Why did
just pumping after pumping?
I can't even
week to
finish
week.
the thought.
I'm sorry, Nicco. You didn't mean for this to happen, but everything you said
all you
sounded
need to do
really
is
double innuendoing.
You just need to get on top of it and ride it to the end.
Wait, what?
Just like sheer impregnable actions throughout the course of a campaign. You're like, don't be afraid to pull out, and it's very fluid. I'm like, Nicco. This is my fault, but Nicco.
Like my brain's dirty.
I
It's not-
don't understand. Yeah.
It's like my brain's dirty.
Okay.
It's not nothing. It's not like Nico's saying not saying anything wrong.
I'm gonna have us run a boat themed high seas pirate D&D session where we're all just seamen.
Okay.
I'm down with that.
I think
and then we call it Sea of
and to
Thieves.
clarify, no, it's called seamen.
Oh, okay.
To clarify, when we say D&D, obviously we mean all, theater of the mind, like D&D or Pathfinder or even GURPS, anything of that sort. Doesn't have to be D&D in particular.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends on the group and whether the DM finds their job to be providing challenge or whether they're doing what DMs should do and make it difficult but fair and make it enjoyable at the end of the day. Like you have to be able to pivot. It's just improv, and there's a lot of DMs or GMs that don't really improv well, and that can affect the experience depending on like how rigid they want to be with the rules. There are a couple D&D sessions that I did as part of I think they're on the NewTubers channel, I believe. We did a couple like experimental one-shots between myself, Moriarty, and two others, where we just played D&D, and it was Mark of Digital and Dice is their YouTube channel. I don't think they're currently active, but they were such a good host for that event because Em and I would throw the most batshit stuff at them, and they would just come and take it all in stride and find a way to make it work. And you don't necessarily have to fudge a roll for it to work, but you just work within the elements of what you're given, and that's experience, of course, but that gets into the weeds a little bit too much. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of who you're playing with.
Well said.
Yeah. I'll say the biggest thing for me is you get what you put into it most of the time. As long as you have a good group of people and you have a good DM and everybody is giving as much of an effort as you are, then you get as much enjoyment out of it as you put into it. So like your character's playing off of other characters, like, and playing off of other players, because otherwise you're just kind of four people listening to someone tell a story that they actually don't know the ending to because their ending depends on what you do. So
what you're saying is that D&D is a beast with multiple backs.
That is very true. 1 million, some might say. Or maybe 1 billion.
That works too. I wasn't going for the Futurama reference. I was just making another
sex joke.
Nicco sex joke. But that works. Yeah. Chris, what do you think about the D&D as the final part of our tabletop and other stuff discussion?
Are we talking like bareback or?
Just lay it all bare.
I don't like horses. I don't like horses.
I only wrap it up when I play D&D.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just lay everything bare. Lay everything like you have nothing left to hide.
Yeah.
You guys did too good of a job talking about it. I don't have anything to add.
Well, one thing I'll add is that we didn't talk about it in the scope of online play, which is what the crux of this topic is how easy or difficult or how different the experience can be to set up those sorts of games, like a card game, a board game, D&D sessions. D&D is obviously the easiest one to do over a Discord or a Skype.
I would say next to Jackbox. Jackbox is the easiest because it runs it for you.
Well, you need to buy Jackbox.
That's true.
Like D&D, you can just get into a call and I mean, there are Twitter accounts that role play. Like you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, someone made the point earlier of reading the room being easier in like a hidden role game. I think reading the room would be easier in a D&D game in person, but that's just speculation. I haven't played D&D in person. I've only played it online. So
it is, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a lot nicer in person in my experience. But I haven't had a good online D&D group either, so I don't really
neither have
know
I.
that side of it. Yeah.
That's disrespectful.
Take that, Justin.
Because I was in that group.
Well, you didn't have to say that.
Sean, multiple Crubcast members in that group.
Justin's self-reporting.
Yeah, I'm the imposter. Vote me out.
Okay, bye. Disconnect from call here.
Please don't. Please, no. I'm losing my friends before we even get to start to play the tabletop games.
That's fine. Bye, Justin.
Well, I have one.
Tabletop games are fun.
No, tabletop games are a lot of fun.
Listener.
Yeah, I really. The crux of this entire conversation for me is just talking about how much I really do enjoy the entire culture and the entire like the entire like way of playing tabletop games and how fun it really is, because it lets you connect with your friends in a way that most other mediums wouldn't really allow, because you do get to do some really, really fun things, and it kind of is encouraged by the game you're playing.
It's a lot easier to go to your friends and say, hey, let's play D&D versus, hey, let's get together and improv weekly.
Yeah, right?
Let's just do improv sessions each week.
for
Like,
That's what the Minecraft server's for. That's what the Minecraft server.
God.
oh, I
Yeah.
see.
All right.
Yeah.
If you want to play the Minecraft card game, tellthebell.com.
Tellthebell.com. Can we get that?
Yeah, we should
URL?
probably get that domain before
That's
we start
literally
shilling
Taco
it.
Bell's
I want it, though.
user review.
Can we ask Taco Bell?
Oh, it's like legitimate.
No, that's
It's
actually
literally the
Bell's
Taco
thing,
Bell,
yeah.
like that's their Taco Bell support, like leave a review site. I wasn't kidding. Do it.
And you're
Leave
saying
a review
copy.
of the Crubcast
yeah.
at tellthebell.com.
I was gonna say, can you leave instead of using your reviews on Spotify, use them on tellthebell.com.
No. Use them on Spotify first, and then paste them. Like we still need them.
Yeah, we need them. Hmm. It's like gold to us.
It's all we have.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, Justin, what's your last
I
question?
have a last fast-hitting question, kind of like what we'd like to try and do for like a viewer question of the episode kind of thing. My question to you is, which Candyland biome are you?
What?
You know how on the Candyland board they have all different types of candy that you go through on the entire land of Candyland?
Never.
Why biome?
I'm like scratching the farthest recurrences of my brain.
hold on, I
Like,
got
Like
it.
what
you
was
said,
the biome in Candyland?
that was a
other than
horrible.
candy?
That was a horrible question. Like which biome of Candyland? I'm thinking like post-apocalypse or tundra. Like
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
because
actually, I would
biomes are
say
like
that I'm.
Arctic, grasslands, deserts, like that's kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
the
bottom,
desert. I would say I'm
I'm
the
gonna
desert.
go with subtropical forest.
okay.
Yeah, I'm the desert.
These are two climates candy would melt in so far, so I'm going to say under the ocean.
And I'll say
Okay.
licorice. Thank you all so much for coming out to the Crubcast. This has been your friendly neighborhood JTart9 out here with All Hail Buckets, the Golden Bolt, and Chris Mykonos fan. Thank you so much for listening.
The question.
Where can we find all of
You
us,
can find-
friends?
Justin, where are you?
At those places that you just heard those names.
Because I
Yeah.
plugged all your names. You can find us all on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify. Nicco just released a new
Spopey,
album.
yeah.
Please listen to the new album. It is really, really good.
All hail buckets.
If you want to find any links to anything like this will be in the show notes. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.